Hello, my friends. Solo pod. I haven't done one of these in quite a while. Shout out Alexis. She's going to be really upset about this that she's not here, but I definitely wanted to talk about this because it's so fresh on my brain and I will talk about it with her as well, but I want to give you guys my perspective being a media agency owner, um, and just being in media, talking about the equestrian sport, talking about my passion behind this, talking about why I got into this. And this is not going to be about me. This is going to be about the equestrian community as a whole and to why I feel like not only people inside of the sport, but also the general public doesn't care about what is happening inside of the sport. And there's a lot of reasons as to why I feel like that is happening. And we're going to dive deep into what I think. This is all my opinion. So let's just go ahead and state that because I don't want anyone to get upset. Nobody get upset. This is all my opinion. So, the reason this is being brought up is that there was a creator that I saw, and I'll put the video in here, but she made a video that I saw over the weekend, and I'll go ahead and play it for you.
I don't care at all about what the top show jumpers of our sport are doing. Every time I see a post, lawn jeans, scroll right past it, and it seems to me like not a lot of other people do either. Now, I'm no marketing expert, but the reason that I don't care is because it is so incredibly unattainable.
Okay, so I did a stitch to that video. So, and I went on a little bit of a rant about it, but I wanted to go into a deeper dive here so that we could have this conversation. So that morning I was actually listening to the Scope podcast, who I love, and they were talking about that they had the president of the Split Rock Jumping Tour on their podcast. They ended up having to take it down, but they were talking about overall attendance of the World Cup finals. And this also happened at the World Cup finals for dressage. And so it was interesting because they were talking about attendance and they were talking about how ticket prices were an X amount. And when Jen's son had purchased the tickets, and then the tickets prices went down like significantly right before the event, because obviously they had low ticket sales and trying to get people to go. And then there was it was this dressage event. I think it was the World Cup finals. I'm pretty sure. I don't know if it's like equivalent to the World Cup finals for dressage. I'm not super sure what the event was, but the same thing happened where the tickets were really, really inexpensive because they were just trying to get attendance. They were just trying to get people to go. So let's talk about why this is happening. And then also the fact that this creator has talked about that she's in the sport and she doesn't care about what's happening at the top level of the sport. Now, let's dive into that in general. So that is such a unique situation. So you think about anybody that's very dedicated to golf or tennis or, any baseball, any sport and football, and anybody that's as an amateur or even a professional in that sport, they're going to probably pretty much know and really follow the people that are at the 0.001%, that are at the highest level of the sport. It's just so, you think about Tiger Woods, you think about Simone Biles, you think about, Chipper Jones, back in my time, that was a huge baseball player. And you think about I don't even know baseball and I don't even know gymnastics. I don't know golf, but I know who those people are. So why is that? Why is that all of these sports that I don't play, I know who those people are, but even in my sport, there are so many people that I don't know them, and they are there. And the more I get into the sport in the media world, the more I learn who these people are, a little bit about their stories. I get a general idea of, who's top level, who is, what the hell is going on inside of the sport. And so, and the reason, obviously, like I said, I own KB Media. I'm a media agency owner. So this is, take it with a grain of salt. It's going to be biased, obviously. But whether I was in the media world or not, I don't know if this would necessarily change my perspective, because I think it's blaringly obvious as to why this is. And I've just had so much experience now inside of this world. And I've been working with these brands, working with sponsors, working with the inner workings of where marketing dollars are going. And I feel like I have a very unique perspective because I work with these brands. I work with these people. I understand kind of the psychology of like what's going on and the decisions that are being made. Now, obviously, this is like a blanket statement. Not everybody's like this, but I would say 99% of the brands that I have worked with, this is the way that they're choosing or not choosing to support the sport. So, and this is not just, I wouldn't say this is just specifically hunter jumper world. This isn't, just dressage. Like, I think, oh my God, I just flicked there was a wasp that like literally came flying at me. Yikes. So sorry. Anyways, so I think it's across like any equestrian discipline. I don't think it's necessarily just one discipline. I think that this is across the board, pretty much any discipline that has horses in it. So the reason, and this is the conversation that I was having over the weekend in my response to this video, is that I firmly believe that the reason that this is happening is because brands are making the conscious choice to spend marketing dollars in other places. Now, you think about Simone Biles has a documentary about her. Tiger Woods has a documentary about her. Look at Full Swing. Full Swing is a fantastic Netflix series. You think about these major tennis players, truly, the list goes on. Michael Phelps, whatever. So the decisions were made to surround them in as much media attention, coverage as humanly possible, right? It was almost like a race for sponsors to capitalize on this. And now you look at, like Richard Vogel is a really perfect example. Richard Vogel is an Olympian. He rides for Germany. He owns United Touch, which is my most favorite horse in the whole world. I think he is. I remember seeing him for the first time in the Olympics last year, and I was like, love at first sight. And, for somebody or Ken Farrington is another very good example. For somebody that is so predominant in the sport. You talk about Lily Keenan, Richard Vogel, Ken Farrington, Laura Kraut, Jessica Springsteen, all of these like major contenders in the show jumping world, which is probably the biggest and, most relatable in terms of in the hunter jumper world. There's no coverage on them. Nobody knows their stories. And, the thing that I get most frustrated with when it comes to equestrian media is that if there is coverage on any of these riders, and you can say it in the hunter world too, there's, I saw an interview recently on Jeffrey Hesslink, and I saw one on Nick Hannes, and, I've seen multiple on Scott Stewart. So all of these, like, I'm not saying that the media doesn't exist. It's limited, but it's also very rehearsed. It's very curated. It's very rehearsed. And you feel as if, at least for me, I feel almost uncomfortable or non-interested because it's so scripted. It's content that I just truly is not interesting to me because I want to know, what is this person doing in their training routine? What is this person doing? What did they eat for breakfast? Do they work out? Do you go to the gym? How often are you going to the gym? How many horses do you ride a day? I want to know these questions and consume it in a way that feels approachable. And I think that's really where, again, so many, there's and F1 was another conversation, and I'll get to that in a second. So there's so many sports that parallel the equestrian sports, and golf is probably the closest one. Golf is an extremely elite sport. Now, the difference is obviously that anybody could go and pick up a golf club, right? You can go get a golf club at Walmart and go take it for a swing, right? You could go practice, so the accessibility with horses is obviously there's a barrier to entry. But I also, there's so many arguments to be had about that. And I think that, as a child, it truly comes from the luck of the draw. At the end of the day, it takes a lot of luck to be lucky in life. And I think that, as a child, from a child's perspective, you only have so much control in terms of how much you're going to be able to ride, how much access you're going to be able to ride. If your parents have the means to allow that to happen, all of those things, obviously super matter. And I think when people have those types of arguments, I think it's just such a moot point because it's so out of everybody's control, right? At the end of the day, you're dealing with a large live animal that it's not like a golf club. It's not like a tennis racket, that the accessibility is just different, and it just is. So I don't really want this podcast to be drowned in that, because at the end of the day, it just is what it is, people talk about how much it is and all those types of things, whatever. But I think the thing that is the most important thing to talk about is that, you consume these pieces of content that are so not modern. These pieces of content are archaic. They feel as if you are watching it, you get transported back to being a child, and you're watching TV, and you just see these interviews on TV that are just so boring, and it just doesn't feel it gives you absolutely nothing. And so, there's so many pieces of content that are like that with all of these top people in the sport. And there is just, for some reason, and I think that's what I was getting to with the golf thing, is that I feel the reason that is because for some reason I feel equestrian people feel it is, there's so much tiptoeing, and there's so much to be quiet about, and there's so much prestige and excellence and, image to maintain and uphold, that they're so afraid to let their guard down to allow people in. And I think that is where people are missing the mark. And I feel Boyd Martin is probably the only example that I could give where he utilized social media to its fullest extent to completely let his guard down. Now, that doesn't mean, I just want to be really clear about this too, is that doesn't mean providing your audience with a inside look of your world. It doesn't mean you have to talk about your personal life. Doesn't mean you have to talk about hot button topics. It doesn't mean that. It just means giving people the chance to feel as if they're having a conversation with you and feel as if they are getting a peek behind the curtain, so to speak. And that's exactly what Boyd did. He did such a great job of showing people. I remember he was working with this thoroughbred, and I need to go back and look at who it was. And I remember it so well because he was 5 years old, and I was following the entire journey with him. He talked about his entire training routine, how he worked with him, because he was really hot, and he was teaching him how to jump correctly and how to not get nervous, how to not get stressed, because I too had a thoroughbred that was also in the same at that time of my life. He was very green and didn't really know what was happening, and rushing the jumps. And so having those pieces of content that I could relate to, and I was oh my gosh, he is a real person, and he deals with these issues too. And he that's what made me fall in love with him. I'm not even in the eventing world. I know nothing about eventing. I can obviously respect it, and I understand that it's incredibly difficult and all of the things, but I know nothing about it. But it doesn't matter, because I love his story. I love him. I love his personality. I got to feel I knew him in some level, and that made me become a fan. And the psychology of that is not difficult. It's not difficult to understand or grasp, or it's kind of been, known in the marketing world for hundreds of years, hundreds of years. But no, quite a while, right? The likability factor has to be really, really there for people to fall in love with you and your story. And so, I feel as if that is where the equestrian world just really doesn't live up to anybody's standards. And I think the I don't want to point fingers, so to speak, but the where brands are deciding to spend their money and their marketing dollars is not by creating any sort of facade around these athletes. You know, there's no coverage on them, there's no events, there's no, you know, have an experience with Kent Farrington. There's no get to know Kent, like behind the scenes with Kent. There's no, you know, there's no social media. There's nothing. There's nothing there. And now the social media may be like there, but there's nothing that makes me want to connect to it. That makes me want to like stop what I'm doing and say, oh my God, Kent's showing. I have to go watch because I have to see how him and Greya are doing, you know, because I know there's no backstory, right? Like, it's like, okay, yeah, he's won like whatever he's won in a row and he deserves every ounce of that. But like, there's nothing for me to attach to. And so why aren't these huge brands and these huge corporations like Ariat or you name it, right? Like you can name a million equestrian brands that have the funds to do so and they just don't. Like Lemieux, Hermes, truly the list goes on and on and on. And these are multi-million dollar companies that have huge marketing dollars and that could surround themselves in something really positive in the sport, but yet they would rather just put their names on a jump, or they would rather, you know, sponsor a VIP event, or like they would rather like, you know, like whatever. Like they don't want to spend the money on the media coverage to make these athletes who they deserve to be. And, you know, I think that the thing that's tough is that being in the media world, you know, obviously we have our docuseries Inside the In-Gate where we are trying to do that, right? But like, that's what I said on my social media posts is I'm just a girl, right? Like I'm not a multi-million-dollar corporation. And these pieces of content, they cost a ton of money to produce, tons of money, because it takes an immense amount of time. A great team, and a ton of money to market it, because marketing any piece of content is hard, and getting people to know about it and care about it. And now I do believe that when that content is created and when that content is there for people, that people will flock to it. I truly, truly believe that. Inside the In-Gate won an award. First year ever being created, won a film award. I mean, that is pretty incredible. I mean, the fact that like, and the thing is, y'all, like I edited that myself. I had that because that's all I could afford to do. I edited that piece of those 4 episodes. I edited on my own, and I had literally zero experience editing any kind of documentary, any kind of docuseries, any kind of a show, like a literal show. Is insane. But I knew that this needed to happen so badly. And like, I'm not looking for a pat on the back. Okay. So just like chill. I'm not looking for that, but I'm just saying, I know that it needs to happen so badly that I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make and provide that for everyone, because that's where the equestrian sport is missing the mark. Because whether the brands are Nike, Under Armour, like Red Bull, like whatever, it doesn't matter. But like somebody's going to have to be the first to do it. Somebody's going to have to be the first one to take the leap and be like, all right, we're going to invest $250,000. We're going to make this show and we're going to see how it goes. You know, like somebody's going to have to be the first to do it to make the floodgates open. Because once the floodgates do open, it will be insane. I promise. And like, it's gonna happen. Like, I would never, so like, I came from I'm still in the commercial world. We have commercial clients and create content and marketing strategy and long form, short form, we produce all types of digital media. And I came from the commercial space into the equestrian world because I knew that there is such a lack of equestrian media that it is just so it's unprecedented. Like, it truly is. It's unbelievable that it is like this. And people get frustrated about low attendance. They get frustrated about people not caring about it. And there is no reason for them to care if nobody else cares. Like, these brands don't care either. Like, they're not investing money. They're not making anything happen. They're not giving you a reason to fall in love with Kent Farrington. They're not giving you a reason to know about United Touch and or Richard Vogel or their success stories. Like, nobody's doing that. Like, we're about to have the Olympics in the United States. And if you were a smart person, every single person, anybody with a camera would be trying to produce their own docuseries and making it some type of something. And, I was always insecure about this for a long time because I was like, like, there's going to be people that come behind us and they're going to be producing docuseries because they've seen us do it over the past year and a half. And that's fine. You know what? Like, I'm totally good with that, and I'm totally fine with it. But at the end, because the sport needs it, and there's so much of a lack of like media coverage that, like, there's probably enough for everyone. Like, truly. And I just would love to see it happen more than I care about people copying me. And let's also be real. Like, I'm not reinventing the wheel. And it's not, and I'm probably copying somebody else because I'm not the first person to ever do an equestrian docuseries. So let's just like go ahead and state that. But truly, like, it was just such a topic that I was like, I had to just like sit down and talk to you guys about it because I just felt so passionate about it. And I was like, y'all, like, if you don't see the writing on the wall, like, these brands like have got to, and I don't want to fully place it on the brands either. Like, I don't want to fully place it on the brands because there is a lot of responsibility surrounding the athletes as well. Like, because if the athletes, really spent the time and took the time to hire a team and like create the media coverage for themselves, like create the hype for themselves, that, it could also be helpful and more, and it could also provide value because that's what Boyd did. And then, so he just kind of like did it in reverse where he created his own hype and then he got, the sponsorship and the media coverage around that. But yeah, so that's my shtick, guys. I am passionate about it, and I want to hear what you guys think. Like, what do y'all think about this? Alexis and I are going to talk about this too, because I think it's really important. And, I just wanted to get some yapping done and, give you guys a longer form answer and understanding of how, why I feel like this is such a phenomenon and why I think it is like such a weird thing though. Like, you guys have to agree. Like, you think about the shows that like Polo, like, or Race to the Crown, like both of those shows were so focused on like what every equestrian like isn't focused on. And Polo was pretty good. I think Polo did a really good job making you fall in love with like the riders. And like, I would have loved to have seen like more horses, but like, and their stories and whatnot. But like, I really liked Polo. I think they did a good job. Race to the Crown, no, terrible. Like, I wanted to turn it off immediately because I felt like it was about the characters and it was nothing about like, it was nothing about like the warm and fuzzies that I wanted it to be. I wanted to hear about the jockey stories and the horses stories. And like, it was just like the people with money, right? Like, I don't care about that. I want to hear about like, the nitty gritty of the training and the athletes and the journeys and all those things. So, but all right, y'all, will y'all get in those comments? Y'all let me know what you think. Share this with somebody that you feel like, would appreciate it, have a different perspective or the same perspective. Because I'm interested to start this conversation because it needs to be had. So, all right, I'll catch you on the flip side. Bye.